Question 5. Your thoughts on using CrossFit or functional fitness as a supplement for another sport?
What's the sport, mate?
It's the first question I would ask as well. I think we have to define what the sport is. We actually have to define two things here. We have to define what the sport is and what do you need to be good at if you want to excel at the sport.
Yeah.
And the second thing we need to define is what is your definition of CrossFit?
Yeah.
Because we know that the definition of CrossFit varies from athlete to athlete, from coach to coach, from gym to gym. There is really no one way to prescribe CrossFit. So as an example, we may see some CrossFit programs be heavily biased towards more metcons and endurance.
Right.
We may see some CrossFit programs more heavily biased towards strength and weightlifting. We may see some more biased towards movement and gymnastics work.
Yeah.
And so I think we need clearer definitions there. But generally speaking, if someone's goal is to excel at another sport, then just like we talked about in one of the previous questions, which is what do we need to be good at for CrossFit, we need to ask the athlete or ourselves, what do we need to be good at for that sport?
Yeah.
So if we take something like rugby sevens.
Okay.
For rugby sevens, what we need to be good at, we need to be working stop-start, but at a pretty high intensity for 7 minutes straight.
Yeah.
And then we need to rest about 3 to 4 minutes and do it all again. And we need to do that multiple times within a day because sevens is never just a game. It's a tournament often. And in terms of what that 7 minutes of work needs to look like, you need to be doing a bunch of up and downs. You need to be running slow, moderate, and fast. You need to be hitting contact. You need to be lifting heavy objects. And so that, for me, if that is the sport that I need to be good at, what does the training need to look like for me to be good at a sport? Well, I think there's going to be aspects and elements of CrossFit in terms of movement selection that would have validity to help a rugby sevens athlete.
Yeah.
We need to be very specific with the time domains that we're training and the level of intensity. For example, it doesn't make sense to be doing, well, in fact, every form of energy system training could have validity for a sevens player because they need to have a big aerobic base, but also need to be moving short and fast. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is, and I think this person was alluding to this in the question because they said the word as a supplement, but nothing replicates doing the sport itself. So for some, in this example, in rugby sevens, spending all your time in the gym doing CrossFit to get you better at sport has merit up until a certain point, but at some point you just need to spend more time doing the sport, which is doing rugby 7 style training and games, and doing less in the gym. And don't get it backwards by thinking that the gym is going to be more important than the sport, because at some point it isn't.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think the supplementation, is that the word that I'm looking for? Yeah, that would probably benefit a lot of people. There's a lot of structural balance stuff. So is that necessarily CrossFit itself? I think if your sport looked similar to CrossFit, like you said, but the time domains and what's demanded of the body, sure, that could be an option. But a lot of the time, more like structural balance, bodybuilding style work could be a good addition. Or again, it depends on like how many training days you have and what the strength and conditioning coaches are already giving you. Like, it does become quite difficult. And
I think another thing is what we have to talk about the athlete as well.
Yeah.
If someone wants to get, let's use a rugby sevens example, because we've defined what the parameters of the sport is. If someone wants to get better at rugby sevens and they've never done any form of strength and conditioning at all, ever, then doing any form of strength and conditioning is going to make them better at the sport. Yeah. So if they step foot in a CrossFit gym and they start doing CrossFit 3 to 4 times a week, they're probably going to get into their first season of rugby and be like, the next season of rugby and feel amazing. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best option. And we know that as someone's training age increases, their specificity needs to increase. So their training needs to get more specific as they mature as an athlete. So I think, the other thing we need to think about there is who is the athlete and who we're working with.
So it can be used as a great supplement, but it needs to also be tailored to what you need for your specific sport.
Yes.
And that would come down to, I guess, the coach that you're working with or the gym that you're at and what they can provide.
Yeah.